Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Barakah Kodash, Barakatom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of the great millstone who rule and teach well, and peace and salutations to you Akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother of Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off with Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 7. And Yahweh thy power will put all these curses, the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28, upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecute thee. This is Deuteronomy 28 verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave. And if you've got the eyes to see, you can clearly see that these curses, especially that curse of a man having an evil eye towards his brother, is starting to fall upon the enemies of the Israelites. You Israelites being you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and their chief enemy among the heathens being these Edomites or so-called Caucasians, that red Hebrew Edomite. Because besides the Civil War and I guess the 60s, there hasn't been another time in American history where these Edomites have been at each other's throats so viciously. You've got the Edomite woman against the Edomite man with the Me Too movement. You've got the Edomite man against the Edomite woman with groups like MGTOW. You've got the Edomite child against the Edomite parents. You've got the sodomite and transgender Edomites against the straight Edomites. You've got the baby boomer Edomites against the millennial Edomites and vice versa. You've got the rich Edomites against the poor Edomites. You've got the middle-class Edomites against the poor and the rich Edomites. You've got the average Joe Edomites against the Edomites in the government, etc., etc. But chiefly, it's these conservative or Republican Edomites against these liberal or Democratic Edomites. And while at the top we know it's all just political theater, on the ground level, you can really see that these Edomites have an evil eye towards each other in regards to their political beliefs. And it's all going to culminate in a vicious, violent, and bloody civil war. This is Isaiah 19 verse 2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. And this is speaking of the spiritual Egyptians, which are you American Edomites. Because besides being known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures, the United States of America is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. Just look at the back of your $1 bill or the Washington Monument. And they shall fight everyone against his brother. A man shall have an evil eye towards his brother, and everyone against his neighbor. City against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And now I'm going to get into some articles and videos to show the political climate amongst these Edomites, that they're ready to lock horns. This is an article from the WashingtonExaminer.com titled, Pew, 91% of Democrats see violence next in war of words, a civil war. After a week that saw President Trump and his foes toss toxic words at each other, there is now a warning that the next phase could be violence, and there will be violence. Nearly 8 out of 10 Americans told the Pew Research Center that supporters for both sides could act on the politically charged rhetoric with violence. It was higher for Democrats at 91% than Republicans at 61%, and they want the politicians to cool it. So as you can see, these Edomites can feel in their spirit that they're about to start locking horns. And now I'm going to show a video of an Edomite who's ready to lock horns against her brothers and sisters. This is a video on the Patriot Nurse titled, Trump Denounces His Base, Who Will Stand Against the Left? And this is a conservative Edomite who's ready to go against her liberal brothers and sisters who she believes is turning America into a socialist shithole. And not just that, but you'll also see in this video that this Edomite's ready to go against her Edomite brothers and sisters in the government, which is also a part of prophecy. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 15. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, a race war, which is also going to be going on during the Civil War, and swords in their hands, the modern day sword being that gun. Verse 16, and there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And those kings and princes are referring to these political figures like these mayors, these governors, and these senators, because when all hell really starts breaking loose, these Edomites on both sides of the divide are going to realize that you politicians never had their best interests at heart, and so they're going to come after you with those modern day swords.
Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. In today's segment, we're going to discuss the betrayal of Trump's base and what we as conservatives have to do in order to defend ourselves. So I'm going to start with what happened earlier this week, and that is the attempted bombing of the Seattle ICE Detention Center by a declared leftist member of Antifa and also a member of the John Brown Gun Club, which is a domestic terrorist organization masquerading as a gun rights organization, but is in fact trying to foment a grassroots race-based civil war after their namesake, John Brown. So what happened was this naturalized American citizen, who was a 69-year-old Dutch immigrant who came here as a child, decided that he was going to essentially go on a suicide mission per his manifesto, which still has not been released, and show up at the Seattle ICE Detention Center with incendiary devices and a rifle. Now, he was shot down and killed, thankfully, by law enforcement, which, good job for doing that and for keeping people safe. But essentially what he ended up doing was to go in, and he successfully lit a car on fire and then proceeded to attempt to blow up a large propane tank and kill, essentially commit a mass murder and kill a whole bunch of people in the name of his political party, the left, right? So you would think that people would remember and have some sense of a timeline as to where this sits. This is not an isolated event, okay? This is yet another in a series of events where the left has gone full tilt violent, despite all of the cries of that the conservatives are violent, that we gun owners, people who value the Constitution, are violent and racist and terrorist minded. We're the domestic terrorist groups. Oh, no. This dude, this member of Antifa in Seattle.
And at the top, Antifa's just another psyop, but again, at the ground level, there are people that really believe in the movement. But as you can see, there are Edomites on the liberal side that are ready to lock horns with their conservative brothers and sisters, thinking that they're fighting against misogynist, racist, discriminatory Christian conservatives who want to make America great again by bringing it back to the good old days, which you Edomites do, but it's all going to fail in the end because you're both going to fall.
He essentially tried to commit a mass murder. Not much in the media about that. Wonder why? Oh, wait. That's because just a few months ago, we had another dude, another Antifa member in, I want to say it was Oregon, go into his daughter's school, try to get his daughters there, and try to get his daughter at the school, and started shooting at the police at the school, and eventually got shot and killed. And in retaliation for this, his Antifa group planted incendiary devices around the police headquarters there. So I'm tracking a pattern here. That's what we call in the medical world, 2 instances of something is a pattern. Now, when you consider also that Republican congressmen have been shot, and Senator Rand Paul was beaten nearly to death by his neighbor in his yard,
They shall regard neither their kings nor princes.
I would call this a coordinated pattern of violence here. And lawlessness. Certainly lawlessness. And this is not just in the lone actors, right, or these individuals, these isolated events. Oh, no, because this week, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi decided that she was going to completely show her rear end and get on the floors of Congress and use the House of Representatives, the highest arm of the legislative branch of the federal government, to villainize the president and to label him a thought and speech criminal. And of course, when she was called on her BS from, thank God, Southern Representative Collins, Georgia, she was called on it, but basically said, I don't give a crap. And then eventually, when her nonsense was declared not in line with the rules of Congress, Democrats voted lockstep to say, yeah, we know it's wrong, but we don't care, and we're getting her out of timeout, and we're going to say, yeah, she can totally use the vehicle of the legislative branch of the federal government to demonize and villainize perceived thought criminals. Cool. Okay, so that's two areas of concern here. And so you would think that based on the nonsense of this week, that the president would really get it together, and despite the fact that he's been abysmal for the Second Amendment and absolutely abysmal as far as constitutional, principles here, see red flag laws and bump stock bans for that. You'd think that when he went to his little rally in Greenville, North Carolina, which is a solid area, his base, you'd think that he would have just a little bit more respect and support for the people who got him elected, who have stood with him, all this time. So when, in the midst of his rally, the crowd rightfully chants about Ilhan Omar, a Somali immigrant who hates this country, who has failed to denounce Al-Qaeda, who is a rabid anti-Semite, you'd think that he would be okay with the fact that his base, his constituency, his most devoted people, the people that took off of work and drove hours to be there, when they started chanting, send her back, and for darn good reason, especially when you consider the fact that she entered the country on false premises, and that she falsified her documents, she falsified her tax return, she falsified her name, she married her brother. All of these very legitimate reasons why God-fearing, red-blooded American patriots who value the Constitution and who don't want the country turned into a third-world crap hole, all of these are valid reasons why people would say, send her back. So he sits there and he kind of soaks it up, right? And then today, denounces it. Completely turns on his base. Let me tell you something. Like, if you are still defending him at this point, despite his assault and facilitation of assaults on the Second Amendment, and despite turning on his base, not on the Second Amendment, by the way. There are deals to be made, right? But not when it comes to the righteous indignation of American citizens who are fed up.
They shall regard neither their kings nor princes. These conservative Edomites are starting to wake up to the fact that their Make America Great Again savior is just another scumbag politician who's out for his own best interests.
With having their country ruled by socialists and leftists and statists and people from third world crapholes who hate this country and want to turn it exactly into to the place that they fled? No, man. We are on our own. There is no voting that's going to fix this. Nada.
There's no voting that's going to fix this. What is going to fix it?
What do we do, Patriot Nurse? You're just going to hand the election over to the Democrats? Let me put it to you this way, okay? If I have done nothing but consistently lose playing a game, I'm not going to play a game anymore. And the way that I view it, and the way that a lot of people who I know view this thing, is that if we're going to rip the Band-Aid off, let's go ahead and rip it off. The Republicans have shown me that, especially when they get together today with their pals from cocktail hour across the aisle who hate this country, when they get together and lock arms with them and say that people like my kinfolk in North Carolina are screwed up, and that people like me and you are screwed up, and that we should be denounced because we want a semblance of law and order and restored constitutional republicanism, that we're the screwed up ones that should be denounced, and someone like Ilhan Omar, who comes from a country that cuts girls' clitorises off, that's what we're supposed to facilitate? No. Voting on the federal level is not going to work. People keep saying to drain the swamp, and I made this point in my newsletter, okay? A drain is not going to work. A bulldozer is what we need. If you drain a swamp because of the lay of the land, it's just going to collect water again. It's just going to fester and become a malarial, disease-ridden filth hole again. The bulldozer needs to grade the thing and restore it to the slope that the founders intended under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. But until that happens, I don't hold out much hope that it's going to be fixed with a ballot box. So what do I do, Patriot Nurse? Here's what I do know. Okay, based on what I've seen this week and what we have seen consistently from the left, they are not going to stop their violence. In every historical example, these people get power and they get momentum. And now they have legitimization from the very members of Congress that are supposed to keep some semblance of law and order. They are being legitimized. Their methods and their tactics are being overlooked, and lawlessness is being facilitated by their people in Washington on both sides of the aisle. So what do we do about this? Well, let's see here. The Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What is a well-regulated militia? Oh, it's the National Guard, Patrioters. Really? National Guard wasn't in existence at the time, and there was no domestic police force at the time. So clearly it can't mean either of those. What does it mean? You and I Normal citizens are the security. You don't want a police state? You have to support an armed and capable populace. So, if you're going to support it, you might as well be it.
They shall regard neither their kings nor princes. This is Mark chapter 3, verse 24 to 25. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And we can clearly see that this kingdom of the United States is divided, and the house of the Edomites have been divided irreparably. And it's not just videos of the Patriot Nurse that are announcing their, what's the word I'm looking for? Their grievances towards the way things are. You've got other conservatives like her, as well as people on the other side voicing their grievances. And again, it's all going to culminate in a vicious and violent and bloody civil war. So now more than ever, you Akim shouldn't be getting weak in the faith. You can see that our enemy is on his last leg and he's about to fall. You should have that fire in your spirit to push this word as hard as you possibly can to make your calling and election sure. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. And as always, I'm going to say a Baba Bal, Kwam Yasharala. Till next time, Shalom.